Welcome guys. Um, Hopefully this is the beginning of a mini-series that I'm going to be utilizing to walk you through and document a training program that I've been doing in preparation for the Gold Coast Marathon. So this is all relatively new to me. We're at a running track today, hopefully going to get a run in. But before all that, just thought I'd go into the nitty gritty of what has been happening so far. So what we've been doing is we've done a 10-week training block that started in late April. We are now in mid to early June, so there is just literally a month out until the Gold Coast Marathon, being on July 6th and July 7th. Yeah, we are in the middle of week 6 at the moment. I'm probably going to walk you guys through what's been happening from weeks 1 to 5, and then what I've been doing at the beginning of this week, and then heading into peak week, which should be next week, what we'll be doing then, and then it'll be kind of a boring taper off, but we might go through that as well, so see how that goes. What's the point of this? The whole point of me trying to document this is just to see what's been happening over the past, like I said, 5 to 6 weeks. Just wanting to document what's been happening and what's working, what hasn't been working, and what we can improve on. And I think it's a really good idea because that way we can take a look back at what has been working and essentially what hasn't been working and what needs to be tweaked, whether that be within the next 4 weeks coming up until July, or even in preparation for the marathons happening in September. So that's the Sydney Marathon, and then we've got the October Marathon, which is the Melbourne Marathon. So really wanting to start to build a foundation, start to be more comfortable with training, having training with intention, and then moving from there as well. So I think there's a lot to be learned here. There's definitely a huge learning curve in regards to running. Running is always going to be something that you can just jump right straight into, but in saying that, if you really want to get the most out of it, I think you really need to jump into it with a plan. And that's not to say that I'm an elite runner at all, not even close, but I would like to think that I've got some structure and I've got some goals, and hopefully by putting them hand in hand together, I can get what I'm hoping to achieve. So what's different from my training? What's different from my training to other people's training? So the Gold Coast Marathon is on July 7th, which is the 42.2, and the half marathon is in September, and that is 21.1. My stupid ass thinks it's a good idea to do both of them back to back. So I will be doing the 21 into the 42, and I'm going to be chasing the 63.3 medal. So what that means for me is that my training will be heavily endurance based. Honestly, my goal right now is just not to get a DNF. And at first I thought it was pretty silly because it meant that, this is my first opportunity to run a marathon, and I'm kind of just going to be running it at a pace where I'll be incredibly slow, but I'll be fast enough to finish. But I think the precedent is still there. I still got to train hard, still got to make sure that I'm able to move my legs, and that my body can physically and mentally handle it. So that's what I've been approaching my training with. I think the biggest problem that we've had so far in terms of learning experience is that 10 weeks is probably not enough. So given that we've only started in late April, I think I'm already behind the ball, and I've had to really push my workouts and condense them more into not so much non-meaningful, but I've been putting a lot of stress into my body to make sure that I get those runs in. And if I were to do anything different, say towards September and October, I'm going to be starting much earlier, probably saying maybe at least 16-week training blocks, giving myself that time to sort of build up that mileage. Whereas within this week block, I have been increasing mileage at a pretty moderate pace, but it's definitely not been at, say, 10% per week. I've been looking at weeks where it's maybe 10, 20. Sometimes I jump the gun and I maybe do 5 to 10 kilometers more than I did last week. And you know, when the job gets done, the job gets done. But I think in terms of longevity and training efficiency, it's definitely not the way to go. So that's definitely one takeaway. In saying that, I think that was kind of unavoidable considering that I sustained a shoulder injury back in February to March. So that definitely took a physical and mental toll in regards to my training, whether it be at the gym or on the track or running. I'm hopefully fully recovered now, so no real excuses, just got to get straight into the brunt of training again. But yes, definitely in the future, probably looking to do, I'd probably say at least 16-week training blocks. 10 weeks just wasn't enough. It has definitely kept it exciting though. So, you know, 10 weeks, we're 5 to 6 weeks in, that means we're 4-ish weeks out. It's incredibly exciting, more than 50%. I'm getting incredibly nervous. But the day is almost there and I cannot wait for, well, hopefully, fingers crossed, I can't wait for the day for those 3 medals to be across my neck. What I'll do next is I'll probably walk you guys through what my shoe rotation has been like, what I've been training with, what my daily trainers are, what my speed runners are, what my race day shoes will be. Just to give you guys an idea of what shoes I've been utilizing and hopefully see if I need any upgrades in the future. If you guys have any recommendations as well, happy to listen on. I have a crippling shoe purchasing addiction, so I would love more and more shoes. If you've got anything that you've been running with and you love, let me know. But we'll jump straight into the shoe rotation. So first shoe that we got is the On Cloud Surfers. So these are new, or the newest in my rotation. They're my daily trainers or my long run trainers. So I've been absolutely loving these. The only issue that I had with them is when I first started using them, they felt kind of stiff, and I feel like they still are to some degree. But I think that the CloudTech Phase technology that they use is incredibly good. It's cushiony enough for it to feel comfortable, but it's got enough spring and it brings back enough power for you to get your strides in. And I think it's definitely something to take a worth looking at. I'm considering its price is a little bit better now. If I had to purchase something again, I'd probably be looking at the Cloud Eclipse, which essentially is practically the same thing, still uses the CloudTech Phase, but it has the speedboard at the bottom, which just allows for a little more snap and a little bit more bounce, which I think I could utilize a little bit better in regards to getting a more speedy long run. But in terms of comfort, I think these have been absolutely great. I think in terms of mileage, I've only really done probably about 50 to 100 kilometers in them. So we'll see how they stand the test of time. But yeah, no real particular issues with those. And I absolutely adore them. Like, just look at that color. They're just so cute. Next up, we've got the shoe that started it all in regards to my running journey. Andre got me these as a way to get me into the running hobby, and shout out to him because it stuck. But these are the Nike Invincible Run 3s, and I absolutely adore them as well. So these are my long run daily trainers. Really enjoy them just because of their large heel to toe drop off. Their heel over here, as you can see, is incredibly cushioned, making it a really comfortable shoe to have long runs in. My only concern or complaint with them is because of this large heel, I've been finding that there's not a lot of snap, not a lot of speed conversion. So it's more so, yeah, just for a leisurely long run as opposed to being able to push any sort of long run speed efforts. But in regards to their comfort and their cushioning, I would not pass these up for another pair of shoes. I rotate these between the on cloud surfers and these whenever I go for a long run. It's really 50-50 depending on which I want to choose. But if I really had to say what I choose and why, the easiest way for me to put it is, I just want a very easy, say, zone 2 long run, I'd be looking at the Invincible Run 3s. If I'm looking for something to push my speed a little bit, albeit it doesn't have the speed board, I'd still be going for the Cloud Surfer. Next category, we have super shoes. So my first pair of super shoes is the Vaporfly 3s, and as you can see from how worn down they are, I may or may not use them as race day shoes. So I love the carbon plate on these. I love the snap that they give. The shoe comfort, the mesh, the feel, the breathability, everything about the Vaporfly 3s has been an absolute breeze to run into or run with. And my main purpose with them at the moment is, surprisingly, I haven't run them for any sort of race day. I typically use these for any sort of run that I really want to push the speed. So say for example, even if it's a long or longer run, so 10 to 20 kilometers, if I'm really to up the ante, I'll be using these. And particularly with my tempo runs as well, if I'm really wanting to just push the pace a little bit, I'll be putting these on instead of my daily trainers. Some people might come up after me saying, oh my God, but they're carbon plated, why would you wear them on your training? You know, at the end of the day, my justification is, if we're going to be running with super shoes on race day, we kind of got to train with super shoes on training days as well. So that's why I pull these ones out. I still don't think I have a lot of mileage on them, so I haven't been really concerned in regards to retiring these anytime soon. The bottom of them have definitely eroded a little bit, but I think they still have a lot of life in them, and I'm going to continue using them the way that I do. And then last but not least, the big cojones, the Alpha Fly 2. So these are my absolute beauty. I love the color, I love what they purpose, or I love what they serve. Carbon plated, race day shoe. This is everything that I could ask for, besides the Alpha Fly 3, which is practically impossible to get. But at this stage, I will settle for the Alpha Fly next 2%. And I seldom use these at the moment because I genuinely treat them as a race day shoe. But yeah, they've definitely done their worth. In terms of their mileage, they're nowhere near retirement, so I'm incredibly happy with that. But my main purpose for these is race day and race day. And I don't really pull these out of the drawer until I actually need to. The only times as of recent where I've found that I have been using them outside of race day is for interval training. So here again at the track, I said before that I use the Vaporflies a lot, but if I had to be completely honest, Vaporflies are probably moving more towards the tempo runs where it's longer kilometers. If I'm pushing 400 meter repeats or intervals, it's probably going to be these. And I just love every part of them. The bounce, the snap, the carbon fiber on these are ridiculously well molded. I haven't had any issues with any sort of feet structure issues. They fit incredibly well, and honestly, I can't wait to get a second pair, or hopefully Alpha Fly 3s. Nike, if you're watching this, shout out. Please get me a pair. I can't wait any longer. Yeah, I cannot recommend these enough. So another thing that I want to go through is the training schedule and what that's been looking like over the past 5 to 6 weeks. So training schedule has been, I will pop my Strava hopefully here, but in general I've been trying to get at least 4 runs a week, and sometimes that might be 5, or it might be like 4 per week on the calendar, but it might move to 5 to 6 days in a row. And so my main purpose with my runs is that I have at least 3 categories, so I'm covering at least 3 categories. We're going for a long run, an easy run, and a speed run. So the speed work is just to make sure that we can push the lactate a little bit and get a little bit faster as necessary. And then we've got the easy runs where we're just trying to increase our baseline and our threshold, and just slowly building up our cardiac fitness. The unique thing about my training, running training is that is the back-to-back runs. So if you follow me on Strava, you've probably seen that I do long runs back to back. And so what that means is, for example, I might run 20 kilometers one day, and then I'll run 20 or more the next day. And the whole reason behind that is that because we're chasing the 63.3 kilometer medal, where we're running the half marathon into the full marathon, I need to get my body to adjust to be able to running at such lengths, and so that my legs can actually endure the challenge as well. So I think if anything, that's probably been the most taxing of the workouts. But fortunately, I do have things like my zone 2 training and my recovery runs to make up for that as well. In regards to my running schedule and my gymming schedule, so yes, as I mentioned, running is looking at 4 to 5 days a week. Sometimes that leaks into the next week where it will be 5 to 6 days a run, but I'm still trying to hit the gym at least 5 or 4 to 5 days a week. So originally in the gym I used to do push pull legs, but because of the sheer volume of the runs lately, I've had to reduce at least 1 leg day, so that's push pull legs push pull. And I'm fortunate in the sense where I can move that leg day to wherever I find suitable. So the leg day might be in the middle of the week, might be at the end of the week. It really just depends on when I'm doing my long runs, and when my legs are recovered enough to actually do those workouts. And I implore with you guys as well, is just that simply if you are not recovered, just don't do it. Like if I go for a run and my legs are sore, I'm not going to be doing leg day the next day. Or if I do legs day and my quads are on fire, I'm not going to be doing a run the next day. So I think the biggest lesson that I've learned throughout this training block is just that your physical and your mental capacity can only hold so much, and you've got to really adapt and adjust to what you can and can't do. And there's really nothing wrong with having a rest day or two. In saying that, the schedule would definitely change had I been given a longer training block. So I wouldn't say, unfortunately, gym is a huge priority for me right now. I really love getting in there and doing bodybuilding movements. But if I had a longer training block, I would maybe reduce the amount of runs that I do on a weekly basis so that I can gym a little bit more. Or on the other hand, if I feel like I really want to push for a really good PB in Sydney, I might have to increase the runs a little bit more and then reduce the gym workouts depending on what my priorities, or where my priorities lay. So that's something that I'll have to look at further down the line. But for the next 4 weeks for the Gold Coast Marathon preparation, at least, I think that I'm going to stick to what I'm doing, where it's at least 4 runs a week, and then we're going to stick to 4 to 5 gym workouts per. So in regards to nutrition has been a little bit weird in the sense where If you guys know me, you know that I'm very stringent with my caloric intake. Um, Back in January to February, I was probably running at like 10 to 2000 calories per, um, which is really ridiculous considering that my maintenance is probably looking at about 2.5. So I do not recommend heavy calorie deficits at all. I'm just mentally not all there. But in saying that, the calories have definitely been going up. And I still track my macros and my micros on a daily basis. But I think, for lack of a better term, I just kind of stuff my face, particularly in this 10-week block. When you're running so much and when you're still gymming as well, it is, I think, absolutely essential for you to have enough carbohydrates to fuel your workouts, as well as have enough fats in order to have that good hormone regulation, so that you're not wanting to absolutely have your mental explode when you're doing your workouts as well. Protein is just a given in regards to muscle synthesis and recovery, but I've never had an issue with my protein intake, so I haven't really been too concerned about that. Carbohydrates have been incredibly heavy. I've had a lot of carbohydrate resources, so whether that be rice, noodles, pasta, shout out Turkish bread rolls, Baker's Delight, and even my intra-workout fuels like the Morton gels. My carbohydrate intake is off the charts. We're looking at least 300 per day, and it's pushing my caloric intake to about 3 to 4,000 per day. So I am not looking the best that I've looked. I definitely gained a lot of weight since February to March. I think I said that I looked the worst after Japan in October, but I'm looking even worse off now, which is incredibly crazy considering how much I run. But I think at this point in time, at least, I would definitely take that over not having the energy to fuel my runs to the best of my ability. So I'm going to continue what I'm doing in regards to nutrition, just kind of going with how my body feels. If it feels like it needs some more fuel, I'm eating up. If it doesn't, I ain't eating. But I'm going to keep that pushing for the next 4 to 5 weeks until the Gold Coast Marathon. And then what happens from thereafter is still sort of a mystery. So I don't know whether I start going back into my bodybuilding movements and trying to go back into that caloric deficit while still hopefully running. But given that the Sydney Marathon is in September, I think I still have some time in regards to actually sitting down and planning out what my training blocks will be like, what my caloric intake and my macro and micronutrient intake will look like, and what I'm going to be doing to be working towards that goal as well. So that's the schedule, that's nutrition. We're hopefully going to be talking about the runs that have happened thus far now. So, woo!